are we ready?
Go for it.
All right. So panelists, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us your current position and when you were funded by Central Scholarship.
Thanks, I'll start. Hi, good evening, everyone. So my current position, I'm Senior Assistant Dean of Program Planning at Georgetown University. I'm going to date myself, but I was funded when I finished high school in 2000. I attended Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. I also received funding for my doctoral studies as well at the University of Maryland, College Park in 2004. So a long time ago, long time ago. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Hodge.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Pope. I'm an internal audit manager at Wells Fargo in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was funded by Central Scholarship. I believe it started my sophomore year, and then 2007 and 2008, I was a Strauss Foundation Scholar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Freddie Climaco. I am the current out-of-school time program coordinator for the Montgomery County Collaboration Council down in Rockville, Maryland, and I'm in grad school right now for school counseling at Loyola University.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Oluwamaiwa Adipe. People call me Maiwa for short. I am currently a sophomore attending Emory University. I was funded by Central Scholarship my freshman year of college, 2022 to 2023, and also my sophomore year of college, 2023 to 2024.
Thank you so much. All right. So, before you knew about Central Scholarship, what was your plan for financing your education? Don't all answer at once.
I'll start, being the oldest on the panel. It was, always knew scholarships and grants were going to be the things that would fund my education. I worked hard in high school and knew that academically I performed well. And my mother, who's here tonight as well, she was always relentless in making sure that we were seeking out as many opportunities. Yeah. And certainly when this came along, it was definitely a blessing to support my matriculation through college and grad school.
Thank you, Dr. Hodge.
So when I entered college, I was prepared to pay in all loans. So initially I had a Sallie Mae loan and then Department of Education loans. And throughout college, I was able to receive scholarships through several organizations. So luckily that helped me graduate. I think at the time I graduated, I had 2 or 3 years of college paid off through scholarships.
That's amazing.
So I didn't answer the last question in the first part, sorry. I've been receiving scholarships for the past 3 school years now. I'm on my last school year. And my first semester, like I mentioned in the video, my bill for tuition was about like $65,000. I had about like $1,500 left in my savings. So obviously that wasn't the way to go. Tuition was gonna be $10,000 at one semester. So I didn't really know. I mean, that's been part of the life of being the first one to go through these systems, not really knowing what to do. So that's when I found Central Scholarship, and now we're here. Yeah.
So for me, there was really no other option but to be funded for school for my education. I had to apply for many different scholarships, and that was the only option for me to be able to afford a school, especially a school like Emory University.
Thank you. Did your scholarship help you develop any kind of financial stability?
I'll say certainly. I mean, in a way, yes and no, very openly. In a way, yes, because if we do the math, $10,000 for spring, $10,000 for the fall, 3 years later, $60,000, $65,000 buffer room. There was no way I would have ever done that or even had the chance to pay it off. So in a way, yes, I've been able to move funds into undergrad loans, maybe twice a month payments or just bigger payments once a month. So it's a duality kind of it. Yes, I've had a little bit of financial stability, but barely, because I'm able to spend a little more into undergrad loans.
Thank you.
So like I previously said, I came from a low-income family of 6. And when I was young, my parents always enforced education upon us. But I did know that with education came a lot of fees and tuitions and different types of expenses. So I have 3 other sisters, and we're all 2 years apart, meaning that consistently for 10 years, one of us is always going to be in college. And for 6 of the years, 2 of us are going to be in college at the same time. So you can imagine how stressful this could be for my immigrant parents who came to this country for solely our own education. So receiving the Central Scholarship, there was a form of weight that was lifted off my shoulders. I immediately went to go and tell my parents the good news about receiving the Central Scholarship. It is those who are facing financial instability who truly understand that unsettling feeling it is to know that your education is being threatened and at danger due to not being able to afford education. It is also them who understand the joy of receiving a scholarship, knowing that you can further on your education. So like I said, I was extremely happy that when I learned that I received the Central Scholarship. And Central Scholarship has helped me in so many ways, including helping me to be able to attend my prestigious university that has high concentration and high ranking in my desired profession, and also has helped me cover many different expenses, including books and traveling expenses. And when I received Central Scholarship, it also was someone telling me that they believe in me, they believe in my purpose, they believe in my mission. And one thing that has always done for me constantly ever since I received the scholarship is a reminder anytime I am feeling low or I'm struggling in school or even just being hundreds of miles away from my family. It was that constant reminder that to push me to keep on going because there are people who believe in me and have invested into my life.
Thank you. So we are going to move on to the next question, if that's okay, and we're going to be going to the world event segment of our question. Now, what were some noteworthy events that impacted the world during your education?
You want me to take
So
that?
I'll start. So again, recognizing I'm the oldest on the panel, 9/11 was my sophomore year of college, and major life event. It was a moment where, I formed a great deal of empathy. I went to school with a number of classmates who were from New York and some of the areas most impacted, and so it was life changing. It caused major disruptions to a lot of the way that we worked, even traveling back and forth changed because of 9/11, and so it was definitely a moment that will forever stick with me in my college experience. I know exactly what class I was in when I got the news, and so it was huge.
If I may ask, how did it affect your college experience specifically?
I think it really fostered community. It was in that moment that, again, I had a number of friends and classmates, and specifically in New York, friends who had family who were working in the Twin Towers, and we all had to just come together. And this was, in terms of cell phones, I think a few of us had cell phones then, but the connections weren't quite there to be able to engage. And so it fostered community amongst all of us. And I think that carried through throughout my entire time in college is that sense of coming together in moments of tragedy and supporting each other. And so, again, I just, to this day, just value that tremendously.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that experience. Ms. Pope, were you going to say something?
Yes. When I was in college, there was the recession. That ended around 2008, I believe. That same year is when President Obama was elected into office. And then also the Bernie Madoff scandal happened around that time as well. All of those affected me. I'm in the accounting industry. So as a result of the Bernie Madoff scandal, a lot of the laws that were implemented afterwards highly affected the accounting profession. So even though we were coming off of a recession, a lot of companies were looking for accounting majors. So that actually helped me when I graduated in finding employment. And then, of course, just Barack Obama being elected just was like the highlight of my college experience, just seeing that.
Thank you.
We're going to do like a quick crash course history. Moving on to the next president, unfortunately. He who shall not be named, kind of like Harry Potter. I was at UMD that year, and my first semester, I had a professor who is gay, and there was 2 students in a big lecture room just verbally abuse him. And I'd go from classes like that, and I'm also an undergrad, a Spanish major, all pre-Columbus down to like yesterday. And you can kind of imagine the kind of conversations that would go on. We'd be saying all of the nice Spanish, Latino curse words about white supremacy, and then I'd go back to the other classroom and I'd just see those same students. So like an anger would build. of huge frustration would build. And so that, while also working out of school time programs for Title I schools, mainly Latino students, Black students, brown students, it would create even more frustration and anger in a sense. So that building community was such a key part in those years, because that's part of the only thing that we were able to do. Talking to parents, picking up their 6-year-olds, like, is ICE coming to our school? Like, we're in the middle of Gaithersburg, like, largely Latino, South Asian families. They're like, is ICE gonna come here? And I'm an undergrad, how am I supposed to know this, man? But I have to say, ma'am, no, you're completely fine. Like, we are having these conversations. And so that whole presidency with he who shall not be named pushed me to school counseling, to end up, fighting for the injustices and the inequalities and having these kind of conversations, these unsettling conversations. And when you're the only, Latino guy in a room full of white students who don't want to talk about racism, who don't want to talk about, systemic racism and everything else and the isms, So it built a huge frustration, and that's kind of what changed and influenced my education. And so now in undergrad, I'm able to have these conversations a little more openly, a little more calmly, but it took a lot of work to change that anger, that hate, that frustration into, deep passion.
All right, thank you. All right, Mayowa.
So one of the events that was a world-changing event was, of course, the pandemic. It had a big impact on even my high school experience and even the process of going to college. There was a lot of positive, but also a lot of negative things. A lot of times I had to learn how to do things by myself, learn how to do a lot of the research by myself, especially for my junior year where I was not in school and I was actually at home and we were doing virtual school. So that was one thing that really did affect me, but it did teach me how to be very independent, and also helped me to be able to learn about different opportunities that I can receive as a student.
Thank you so much, Mayowa. We are now going to be going to our affirmative action and student loan debt relief part of our questions tonight. Now, Dr. Hodge, I will be starting with you.
Easy questions, right?
You currently serve as the Assistant Dean for Program Planning at Georgetown School of Continuing Studies. With the end of affirmative action, how can we expect institutions to value diversity, equity, inclusion in their student body?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it naturally timely right now. I think what a lot of institutions are doing, Georgetown included, is coming out and making statements in support of diverse student bodies to give that sense of comfort. Because certainly it's unsettling. It's unsettling as an administrator of color. It's unsettling having been, a student of color in these spaces. And I think that's one way. Among the other ways that I'm seeing institutions kind of reaffirm their commitment is through other scholarship opportunities as well. So while the Supreme Court decision was specifically on admissions, a number of institutions are still reaffirming that, hey, we will have specific scholarships for different students of color or based on socioeconomic status. And so I think it's through those channels that a lot of institutions are committing. One other interesting thing that I'm seeing, and I think this speaks a lot to what is yet to come, and being an alum of an HBCU, I think what we're also going to see is a huge influx to institutions that were designed with these students in mind. And so what I'm also hearing is that a lot of HBCUs, as HSIs as well, are trying to start building more infrastructure, more dorms, building capacity, in recognition of the fact that, in the next few years, we're naturally going to see some changes in terms of composition at a number of the probably the elite institutions, but really every institution is having to take a second look at their practices to be compatible with the law. So, yeah, so there's a lot ahead, a lot yet to be seen, but I think the statements are one way that I'm seeing a commitment on the part of many institutions.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much for your informative response. Ashley, as someone who works in the financial sector as an internal audit manager for Wells Fargo, we thought this question would be perfect for you. What do you think student loan debt relief discussion reveals about the need for financial literacy in America?
I think that financial literacy will be extremely important for current students in college and those going into college. When I was a high school student, originally I wanted to go to an out-of-state school. I was looking at Virginia, Pennsylvania, Georgia. One, my mother told me no. But then two, I saw the bill for one of the schools. It was about $40,000 per year. I ended up attending the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which was 3 hours away, so far enough to not be home. But UMES, their tuition was $40,000 for the whole 4 years. So when I saw that, I immediately didn't let my mother know she was right, but I decided that's where I was gonna go. At the time, what I didn't know was interest. So with interest, yes, you may pay that $40,000 per year or whatever the rate may be, but by the time you graduate, that $40,000 may be $80,000. Right. And then once you start paying $100 per month because your bills are adding up, then you may be at $100,000 and $200,000. I have friends that have taken out about $100,000 worth of loans, have paid that back, but they still owe $100,000 in loans. And I think it's going to be important for young folks to understand that because, again, $40,000 per year may not sound like a lot, but once you start to add interest, that is a lot. I have a friend that is unable to buy a house because of her student loans. So it's going to be extremely important that we educate these young folks so that they are understanding of what that means for their future.
And if I may, I just want to piggyback on that because I think your experience resonates with me. With my oldest son, my husband and I sat down with him. He wanted to go to a private institution out of state. I was like, okay, here's what they're offering. Here's what they're not offering. And we literally sat down and talked about, okay, here's where some loans will have to fill the void, but here's how much you would have to pay as soon as you graduate. And so it's having those conversations that really makes a difference in helping students make the right decision about their education. And also, I think naturally, knowing what resources are available, like Central Scholarship, knowing that you can go beyond just your own institution to find support. And so I think I wholeheartedly agree. It's going to, continual education is huge for any college students right now.
Our time is ticking, but I really want to get to this specific question. Do you have any resources that students and parents that are sitting in this room could possibly use? Just bullet point them out really quickly for financial literacy.
Financial literacy, you can definitely start. Google is an easy one. I think a lot of students are on TikTok. There's a lot of good information on there, but you have to make sure you get it from a trusted source. Speaking with financial professionals, I'm a part of an organization called NABA, the National Association of Black Accountants, and we actually go to colleges and universities and provide some of this financial literacy information. Trying to think, I mean, even Central Scholarship is an organization that would help with that. So it's just a matter of doing that research, finding a financial advisor even. It's a good place to start, even as a young student. Those are all good resources for financial literacy.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
So Freddie, as someone who is heavily involved in minority communities, with these provisions being removed from from the college administration process, what obstacles does this pose for diverse students of different language and different cultural backgrounds?
Aside from everything else, like citizenship, document status, language barriers, healthcare access, all of it, it's going to affect everything, in my honest opinion. It'll create a smaller percentage of students of diverse backgrounds in these school systems, in these higher education systems. Schools, let's just stick with 15%. If 15% are from the Philippines, honestly, the next school year is probably going to be like 5%. And then in turn, it's a ripple effect that we don't honestly know how big it's going to be. I'm not in politics, but like politically speaking, it's going to get into everything, down to the economy, down to housing market, lawyers, teachers, all of the professions it's going to revert back, honestly. We're going to see less teachers that are, that look like the students that we want to work with, like Black, brown, and Latino students, excuse me. And it's going to change everything. The healthcare system, again, is going to get so systemically just oppressive. It's going to mess up everything. The studies that we see about how, Black women don't receive as much medicine in the hospitals. That's probably going to get worse. Just the same thing as citizenship numbers, the refugee crisis, all of it's going to affect everything. The ripple effect, this wasn't just a pebble that they dropped in the water. This is like tsunamis times 100 hitting a tiny island.
Yeah, thank you so much, Freddie. Thank you. Mayoa, as a current student at Emory University, how do you see these initiatives impacting student organizations and communities on campus?
Having affirmative action has impacted many students like me and myself as well. But now that things have changed, that is also going to be an impact on our community. When first coming to my school, my first thing that I was thinking about is to find a community of students who are like me, who I can relate with. I'm hundreds of miles away from home, and I'm trying to find my own home away from home. Because of the consequences of ending affirmative action, I have a fear that the community is going to start declining over the years, that there's going to be less diversity in the schools. A lot of times you can look around, and when there's a lack of diversity, students begin to think, do I actually belong here? In return, causing students to transfer to other schools where they feel, or even sometimes leaving school, to where they feel they're more included or they're accepted or where they belong. Having a community in my school has had such a great impact on me. It has helped me to get support from different students and faculty, but my fear is that in the future years to come, students like me will not be able to have that same support system or those same community that will help them throughout their college years.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wish this panel could go on forever, but unfortunately we are down to our very last question. And it is, one of the qualities here Central Scholarship looks for in scholars is their ability to be able to make an impact. What is one piece of advice you would offer students here tonight as they seek to make their own impact in the world? Dr. Hodge?
I'll start. So when I think about my alma mater, one of our mottos was making a choice to change the world. And so I think be intentional, be deliberate in what you do, and take the values that you have from your home life and carry them throughout your education, throughout your career. For me, it's always been gratitude, but it's also been this recognition of, hey, I want to see change. I want to be able to influence positively in different ways other students and other members of my community. So I think, take these things now at this stage in your life and continue to just build upon them. Build that community, build those networks, and take, again, those core values that make you who you are into your experiences, because I'm certain you'll see kind of the impact throughout your whole life.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Ashley.
I would say when I was younger, I thought that making an impact meant that I had to save the world. It meant that I had to end world hunger. And that's not necessarily true. You can make an impact in your community. You can make an impact just in your household. So I would say find something that you're passionate about and do something toward that is within your capacity. If that is saving the world, then go for it. But if it's just buying someone lunch tomorrow, then that's fine as well, because all of those little things, they add up. You may encounter someone that didn't have any money for lunch. So that is just, for them, a really big deal. And for you, it may not be that big of a deal. I remember in college, I helped a classmate with some accounting work, which to me was easy, right? Easy peasy, that was my major. For him, I didn't realize that was between, passing that class was the determination of whether he was going to graduate that year or not. So he ended up graduating, and years later I ran into him and he was so appreciative. But again, that was just, for me, an hour of my time. I didn't really think it was a big deal, but to him it made a huge impact. So just, again, find your passion, do something small, and it'll have that ripple effect.
Thank
That's
you.
kind of close to what I was thinking, honestly. Wow. I know. Did you look at my notes too? I would say chase your passion over that position, because we'll get caught up in, that position of, becoming a principal or that director or the dean or this, that, and the third. And we'll be stuck on that position for so long that we'll forget why we started that journey, and we'll miss the opportunities to help that one person that really needed it. That one individual that was on the verge of failing and, potentially never graduating kind of thing. We'll miss that opportunity. And chasing that passion, making sure that you don't, miss it, you don't forget about it. And just one thing that's just been sitting in my mind since then, Bell Hooks once said to just live simply so others can just simply live. Because that just keeps you humble, keeps you close to who you were when you graduated high school, when you got into undergrad, or from physical therapy to school counseling or nursing to whatever, if you keep that passion, but remembering and staying humble and true to yourself, and then, rounding your shoulders back, standing high and tall, and remembering and being proud about yourself and your roots and where your parents came from and whoever your inspirations were, just keeping that passion close to yourself.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Mayla.
So when I heard this question, it reminded me about a quote I've heard before by a woman named Betty Reese. And she said, if you think you're too small to be effective, you haven't been in bed with a mosquito. And I know that sounds, I know it sounds a little funny, but we all know the effects that mosquito can have because we feel it, we see it, it is effective. So I just want to emphasize the fact tonight that there is nothing too small. There's no skill too small to be able to contribute into the world. Anything you have, you can bring it to the table and just be intentional about what you're trying to do. I always think about how you build a house. When building a house, they use screws and nails. Screws and nails are very small, and a lot of times they can even be overlooked, just like how we overlook our skills. However, these screws and nails are extremely essential to building a house. It is what builds the frame of the house, what gives the house structure, what gives it its shape. And without the screws and the nails, the house wouldn't be able to stand. It will be faulty, it will be shaky. That's kind of like the world. If we're so small, but the world is so big, but we're so essential to the world. If we aren't here to make our own small impacts, or even could be big, then the world wouldn't be able to stand and wouldn't be able to grow and develop in positive ways. So my advice to fellow students here, just like me or everyone, is to take what you have and use it. What we see as small can be gold to the world. So, and I would also like to encourage all the students to just try to impact the world in all of their spaces. And I do feel like a community cannot impact itself or help itself the way we as a community can come together and help itself. So yes, I would just like to encourage you all to just make an impact and be the change.
And with that, that concludes our 2023 SAC panel. Audience, please give them another round of applause. They did an amazing job.